You watch a game of cricket, you see the passion, the big hits, the incredible catches, but have you ever stopped to think about what's holding it all together? It's not just talent and teamwork. There's an official ICC rulebook, and let me tell you, it's so detailed it governs every single millimeter of the equipment and even the very spirit of the game. Today, we're going to deconstruct it. So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the actual equipment, the tools of the trade. Then we'll get into the rules of engagement, how the game is played and won. After that, we'll explore what happens when players cross the line. And finally, we'll see how the final word is delivered through the disciplinary process. All right, let's kick things off with the tools of the trade. You might think a bat is a bat and a stump is a stump, right? Well, as we're about to see, cricket is truly a game of millimeters. Let's start with the wickets. The rules literally specify that the top of the stumps has to be exactly this high off the ground. We are talking precision down to the 100th of a centimeter. It's all about making sure the playing field is identical, no matter where in the world you're playing. And oh, the detail does not stop there. This number, that's the total length of a single bale, the little piece of wood that sits on top of the stumps. It just goes to show how every single tiny component of the game is meticulously defined. And check this out, a bale isn't even just one piece in the eyes of the rulebook. It's broken down into its anatomy, a central barrel and 2 spigots, and yeah, you guessed it, each part has its own precisely mandated length. This is the kind of detail needed to guarantee total uniformity in every single international match. It's kind of wild. Okay, so what about the bat? Well, amongst all this insane complexity, there's this one beautifully simple foundational rule. The blade, the part that actually hits the ball, has to be made of just one thing: wood. No funny business, no composites, no hidden materials. Just good old-fashioned timber. But here's a great question. What does hitting the ball actually mean? The rules are super clear on this. It's not just the wood. If the ball makes contact with the batter's hand holding the bat, or any part of the glove on that hand, it is legally considered part of the bat. So yeah, that shot that came off the glove, totally fair play. So now that we know our tools are defined down to the finest detail, let's see how the game itself is supposed to be played. And in this section, you'll see that the spirit of cricket is just as crucial as any written law. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with this idea: the spirit of cricket. This isn't just some nice-to-have guideline. It's literally the preamble to the entire rulebook. It sets the stage, establishing respect and fair play as the absolute bedrock of the sport. Now for a fascinating little bit of nuance in the scoring. The rulebook makes a huge distinction between a run being disallowed and one that is not to be scored. A disallowed run is illegal, so it's canceled, and the batters have to go all the way back to where they started. But a run not to be scored wasn't illegal, it was just done wrong. So it doesn't count, but play continues from their new positions. Subtle, right? And get this, even the way a victory is officially announced is super specific. If the team chasing the score wins, it's a win by the number of wickets they had left. If the team that batted first wins, it's a win by the number of runs. And believe it or not, you can actually win a match purely on penalty runs. Of course, we all know that playing fair isn't always a given, which brings us to a really important question. What actually happens when players decide to cross that line? And that leads us right into the formal framework for dealing with all kinds of misconduct, the ICC Code of Conduct. And the code gets unbelievably specific. For instance, let's take the offense of an aggressive send-off. It's not just about what you say. It could be celebrating excessively right in the batter's face, any kind of verbal abuse, or even something as simple as pointing or gesturing towards the pavilion. It's all about shutting down actions that are designed to provoke a reaction. Now, beyond what happens on the field, you have the Anti-Corruption Code, which is all about protecting the game's integrity. And notice this, it's not just about match fixing. Simply failing to report that someone approached you or getting in the way of an investigation is considered a massive offense in its own right. The rules also have a whole category for things that are just explicitly defined as unfair play. For example, a batter can't try to sneak a run while the bowler is in their run-up. It's seen as trying to grab an illegitimate advantage, and the rules have no time for it. So what's the consequence for that? It's immediate and it's harsh. The umpire calls a dead ball, sends the batters right back where they came from, and awards 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Boom. Okay, so an offense has happened. It could be a small on-field issue or a major breach of the code. So, what happens next? Let's walk through the official process. The whole path is very structured, almost like a legal proceeding. It all kicks off with an official report from an umpire or match official. That leads to a formal notice of charge. The player then gets to enter a plea. They can admit the offense, or they can take it to a formal hearing, which results in a final decision and any penalties. But what if a player wants to appeal the decision? Well, this part is really fascinating. Appeals are heard de novo, which is a legal term that means from the new. The appeals commissioner doesn't just review the first decision, they hear the entire case all over again, from scratch. They can come to a completely different conclusion. It's a total do-over. And when you boil it all down, the entire system rests on this one simple principle, which is written right there in the code. The responsibility is on the players. Saying, "I didn't know that was a rule," is never, ever a valid defense. Which kind of leaves us with one final thing to think about. When you have a rulebook this detailed and a disciplinary process that's this formal, does it all work together to enforce that foundational spirit of cricket? Or does it maybe risk turning a gentleman's game into more of a legal battle? Definitely something to ponder.